Lieutenant Commander Daniel Hayes had served in the Galactic Diplomatic Corps for 12 years. He'd negotiated trade agreements with the Silicon-based Kroth. He'd mediated territorial disputes between the Vexari and the Morlani. He'd even survived a dinner with the cannibalistic Thren by convincing them that humans tasted terrible. Nothing had prepared him for the Empress of Veyloria. The imperial palace hung suspended between three artificial moons, a masterpiece of crystalline architecture that refracted light into endless rainbows. Daniel's shuttle approached through an honor guard of warships, each one capable of reducing Earth's entire defense fleet to scrap metal. The Veylorians had reached out first, unprecedented in galactic history. A species that had conquered half a galaxy wanted to talk to humanity. Specifically, they wanted to talk about an alliance. And specifically, they had requested Daniel. "You're certain they asked for me by name?" Daniel had asked his admiral 3 times before departing. "By name, rank, and genetic profile," Admiral Chen had replied. "Whatever you did on the Zerathi mission last year, it got their attention." Daniel still wasn't sure what he'd done on Zerathi besides nearly die protecting a group of refugees from pirates. Hardly the stuff of imperial interest. The shuttle docked with a gentle thud, and Daniel straightened his dress uniform one final time. The airlock opened onto a corridor of pure white crystal, and waiting for him was an escort of Veylorian guards in ceremonial armor. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with skin that shifted between shades of purple depending on the light. Their silver hair was worn long, braided with threads of gold. But it was their eyes that unsettled most humans, completely black like windows into deep space. "Lieutenant Commander Hayes." The lead guard inclined his head. "Her radiance awaits. Follow." Daniel followed. The throne room was vast enough to hold a small city. Pillars of living crystal pulsed with inner light, and the ceiling displayed a real-time view of the galaxy, showing every world under Veylorian control. There were thousands, and at the far end, on a throne that seemed grown rather than built, sat the Empress. Lady Veylixia, third of her name, ruler of the Veylorian Empire for the past 2 centuries. Daniel had seen images during his briefing, but they hadn't done her justice. Her purple skin was darker than her guards, almost violet, and seemed to shimmer with an inner luminescence. Her blonde hair, unusual for her species, he'd been told, a mark of the royal bloodline, cascaded over her shoulders like spun gold. She wore a gown of living starlight that shifted and flowed around her form. But it was her eyes that caught him, not the pure black of other Veylorians, but shot through with veins of brilliant gold, like cracks of dawn breaking through night. She was, without question, the most beautiful being Daniel had ever seen, and the most dangerous. He reminded himself of that as he approached and dropped to one knee as protocol demanded. "Rise, Lieutenant Commander." Her voice was music. Not metaphorically, Veylorians actually spoke in harmonic frequencies that human ears interpreted as song. It resonated in his chest, in his bones, in places he didn't want to think about during a diplomatic meeting. Daniel rose. "Your radiance, I am honored by your invitation." "You are confused by it." A smile played at the corner of her lips. "I appreciate honesty, Commander Hayes. I receive so little of it." "Then honestly, your radiance, yes, I'm a mid-level diplomatic officer. Earth has ambassadors far more qualified. Earth has ambassadors who would tell me what they believe I wish to hear." She rose from her throne, and Daniel realized she was even taller than her guards, close to 7.5 feet. She descended the steps with a grace that made his mouth go dry. I did not summon you for your qualifications. I summoned you for your character. She stopped mere feet away from him. This close, he could see the subtle patterns in her skin, like constellations mapped across her body. Seralyth, she said, you risked your life for 17 refugees of a species not your own. When your ship was boarded, you fought hand-to-hand against 8 pirates rather than surrender them. You took wounds that should have killed you. They were innocent people, your radiance. It wasn't a choice. Exactly. Her golden black eyes studied him with an intensity that made him feel exposed. For you, it was not a choice. That is what interests me. She turned and walked toward a private alcove off the main throne room. Come, we have much to discuss, and I prefer to do so away from listening ears. Daniel followed, acutely aware of the guards' gazes on his back. The private chamber was smaller, more intimate. Windows looked out over the nebula that surrounded the palace, painting everything in shades of purple and rose. A table held refreshments, some human, Daniel noticed with surprise, and 2 chairs sat positioned for conversation. Veylora settled into one with fluid grace. Please sit, and you may call me Veylora when we are alone. The honorifics grow tiresome. That's very informal, your Veylora. Yes, something flickered in her expression. It is. Daniel sat, maintaining proper posture even as his mind raced. What was happening here? This didn't feel like any diplomatic meeting he'd ever attended. The Veylorian Empire stands at a crossroads, Veylora began. For 2,000 years, we have expanded through conquest. We are very good at conquest. She said it without pride or shame, simply fact. But conquest breeds resentment, and resentment breeds rebellion. My empire is vast, but it is built on sand. You want to change direction, Daniel said. I want to build something that will last beyond my lifetime. Beyond my dynasty, she leaned forward. Humanity interests me, Commander. You are young, chaotic, frequently irrational, and yet you have achieved in 2 centuries of space travel what took my people 10 times as long. You have built alliances not through force but through trust. We've made our share of mistakes. All species do, but you learn from them, you adapt, you. She paused, searching for the word. You care not just about yourselves, but about others. The Seralyth refugees you saved were not politically valuable. Protecting them gained you nothing, and yet you nearly died for them. Like I said, it wasn't a choice. Yes, that is precisely my point. She stood, moving to the window. Do you know how rare that is, Commander? True altruism. In a galaxy of predators, humanity behaves like something else entirely, something I have never encountered before. She turned back to him, and in the nebula's light, she looked almost vulnerable. I wish to form an alliance with Earth. A true alliance, not the puppet relationships my empire typically maintains, but my council resists. They see humanity as weak, primitive, beneath consideration. Her jaw tightened. I need a demonstration, proof that the bond between our species can be strong enough to withstand their skepticism. What kind of demonstration? Veylora was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her musical voice had dropped to something softer. Veylorian culture places great emphasis on bonding. Political, social, personal, all connections are formalized through ritual. The strongest alliance possible between 2 parties is, she hesitated. Marriage. Daniel's heart stopped. I'm sorry. I am proposing a union between myself and a human, a symbolic joining that would bind our species together in a way my council could not dispute. She met his eyes. I am proposing a union with you, Commander Hayes. The room spun. Daniel gripped the arm of his chair to steady himself. Your radiance, Veylora, I'm flattered beyond words, but I'm nobody. I'm a soldier, a bureaucrat. You're the empress of half the known galaxy. Yes, she walked toward him slowly. And I have spent 200 years surrounded by nobles who see me only as power to be leveraged, generals who see me as conquest to be won, advisors who see me as a tool for their ambitions. She stopped in front of his chair, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. On Seralyth, you saw refugees, not assets, not obstacles, people worth protecting regardless of cost. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Do you know how long it has been since anyone has looked at me and seen something worth protecting rather than possessing? Daniel stood slowly, bringing them face to face, or as close as their height difference allowed. Even with her towering over him, something in her expression made her seem fragile. Veylora, you don't know me. We've been in the same room for less than an hour. I have studied you for a year, Commander, your service record, your personal communications, the testimony of everyone who has served with you. A sad smile crossed her face. One of the few advantages of being an empress, I have access to very thorough intelligence. That's invasive. I know. I apologize. She didn't look away. But I needed to be certain. I am asking you to give up your life as you know it, to become a consort to an alien empress, a symbol for a political alliance, a target for everyone who opposes unity between our peoples. You're asking me to become your husband. I am asking you to become my partner. She reached out and took his hand. Her skin was warm, warmer than human, and impossibly soft. There is a difference. Daniel looked at their joined hands, his rough and weathered from years of service, hers elegant and luminescent. This is insane, he said. Yes, I'd be giving up everything, my career, my home, my species in a way. Yes, your council will hate me, your enemies will try to kill me. I'll be alone in an alien court with no allies and no idea what I'm doing. You will have one ally, her grip tightened. You will have me. Daniel looked up at her, at this impossible creature who ruled an empire and yet stood before him asking, not demanding, asking for his partnership. Why me? He asked. Really, why not a human diplomat, a politician, someone who could actually help you navigate? Because I am tired of diplomats and politicians. Her voice cracked slightly. Because I am tired of being alone in rooms full of people. Because when I read about what you did on Seralyth, I felt something I have not felt in a very long time. What? Hope. She released his hand and stepped back, composing herself with visible effort. I will not force this upon you. You may return to Earth with my offer of alliance regardless. I will not hold your answer against your species, but I wanted you to understand what I am truly asking for. She turned toward the window again, her back to him. I am asking for someone who will see me. Not the crown, not the power, me. Daniel stood in silence, his mind racing through 1,000 objections. This was impossible, impractical, potentially suicidal. And yet, he thought about his life on Earth, his empty apartment, his handful of acquaintances who had replaced genuine friends as his career consumed everything. His parents gone for a decade now. The relationships he'd never built because the job always came first. He thought about Seralyth. About the moment he decided to stand between those refugees and certain death. About how, for the first time in years, he'd felt truly alive. He thought about Velixia's eyes, golden cracks in endless black, and how she'd looked when she said the word hope. Velixia. She turned, her expression carefully neutral despite the tension in her shoulders. If we're going to do this, Daniel said slowly, I need to understand what I'm agreeing to. Veylorian customs, court politics, what this bond actually means. I won't be a puppet consort who just stands there looking decorative. Something flickered in her eyes. You would consider. I'm not saying yes yet. I'm saying I want to know more before I say no. Velixia moved toward him, stopping an arm's length away. There is a ritual, a way of sharing truth between potential bondmates. It would allow you to understand our connection in a way words cannot convey. What kind of ritual? Instead of answering, she reached for his hand again. Do you trust me? I just met you. That is not what I asked. Daniel considered. Every instinct he developed over 12 years of diplomacy told him to be cautious, to gather more information, to protect himself. But another instinct, deeper and older, said something else entirely. Yes, he said, I trust you. Velixia's eyes widened slightly. She clearly hadn't expected that answer. Then she smiled, a real smile that transformed her face from beautiful to breathtaking. She lifted his hand and placed it against her chest, just above her heart. Her skin was warm through the starlight gown, and beneath his palm he felt a heartbeat, no, 2 heartbeats, syncopated and strong. Put your hand here, she said softly. Close your eyes and let me show you what I see when I look at you. Daniel closed his eyes and forgot everything else. The universe dissolved into sensation. He felt Velixia's loneliness like a physical weight, centuries of isolation wrapped in silk and power. He felt her fear of dying without ever being truly known. He felt her desperate, fragile hope that maybe this human who protected strangers without hesitation could protect her too. And beneath it all, he felt something else. A warmth spreading through the bond between them. A connection forming, tentative but real, like the first light of dawn after an endless night. When he opened his eyes, tears were streaming down Velixia's face. You felt it, she whispered. I was not certain humans could. Daniel reached up and gently wiped her tears away, marveling at how natural the gesture felt. I felt it, he confirmed, all of it. And, he smiled, I think I'm going to need a bigger uniform, something that fits in at an imperial court. Velixia laughed, a sound of pure, uncomplicated joy that echoed through the chamber. You will have the finest tailors in the empire, she promised. And you'll have someone who sees you, Daniel replied. Not the crown, not the power, just you. She leaned down and pressed her forehead to his, a Veylorian gesture of profound intimacy. Then let us build something new together, Daniel Hayes, something that will last. Outside the window, the nebula swirled in shades of purple and gold, painting their future in colors neither of them had imagined alone.